Hi everybody and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today I'll talk about when men do not understand how unattractive it is for them to not do anything in the home. And while most men that I work with do things in the home, there are some who do not, and ones that assume that there's no reason for them to. So like as soon as they can outsource, then they outsource and basically their life turns into work at outside of the house and then leisure inside the house, and why that is so much of a turnoff to their wife. And that's as soon as I tell you to subscribe. Most recent subscriber episode is about gifts, the gifts love language, and how that one gets a bad rap, but it is certainly no shallower than any other one. And of course, you get 185 extra if you subscribe. So I've talked a lot about how your wife doesn't like when you just sit around. And gaming is not usually one that women like. Some list of the least attractive hobby, right? Kind of similar to when your wife's just scrolling on Instagram. Like it's like Jesus Christ, you can see like the time of her life just ticking away, you know? And from your perspective, she's doing something so useless. Well, that's what that seems like to women. And, you know, just watching a lot of TV, basically anything sedentary is going to be unattractive to both genders. So the point here is if you are just sitting around, your wife feels like you cannot take care of her. And even if you financially provide, and if you're a real go-getter in the office, she doesn't see that. What she sees isn't like, oh, you made enough money that you can outsource everything, which is what some guys say. But rather that you do nothing. I mean, that's like literally what is in front of her face. And it's something for you to think about this, because a lot of guys don't think about this in terms of their children. And in terms of their kids are also seeing you do nothing. So there's like a lot of guys who make a lot of money and they are really successful at work and people really respect them. And their kids don't. Their kids kind of think of them as this dude who just lazes around the house. And why? Because 100% of the time when they see you, that's what you're doing. So, I mean, they're not stupid. They're using the data from their eyes to say, you know, like what it is that you do in the world. And you don't do very much in the world that they see. So if their mom is really engaging in all of the life activities, you know, getting their food ready and getting them to their doctor's appointments and getting them ready for school and that kind of thing. And then when they see you, you're either getting yourself ready to go to work or you're relaxing after work. Well, they never see you engaged in anything proactive. And hobbies, children are not stupid, you know, so they know the difference in things that you do because you want to and things you do because you have to. And if you're never doing anything you have to do except for work and they don't see work, then, you know, they assume that you're kind of not as serious a person and they don't respect you the way that they respect their mother. And I see this kind of over and over. And the guy will think, but that doesn't make any sense. You know, like I provide this whole lifestyle. And then the guy may say something like, they just see me as an ATM. And yeah, they do, because that's the role that you're taking in the home. You are just kind of looking out for your own leisure and your own dopamine rushes in any time that they see you. So evolutionarily, women are drawn to men who are proactive because that's who could defend them. You could never just sit around. Like even if you work, if you're on a farm, you get up every single day and you take care of the animals or the animals die, right? So if you're a hunter-gatherer society, then the hunter, he's going out there to hunt, you know, every day. Not like there were never celebrations or rituals or days of rest or, you know, among earlier societies, of course there were. But the default was work. The default was you get up and you go do something, right? And so it's still the same. Like you get up and work, you know, 5 days a week. They just don't see you do any of that. So if you don't also do things in the home, then your wife is not attracted to you and your kids don't really respect you. And you got to really think about that, because people are not wired to respect those who engage purely in leisure. And a lot of women say this, by the way, in terms of that their husbands don't respect them as stay-at-home moms of school-age kids. Well, you got to really bust your ass as a stay-at-home mom of school-age kids to make the home awesome. Otherwise, he is forgiven for thinking, what do you do during the day? And many people do a lot during the day, and they have a great home, and they volunteer, and they make sure that everything is ready for the kids. Everything moves like clockwork. They take care of themselves, and they take care of everybody else. And great. That's certainly engaged in a lot of productive work. But there are a lot of guys that, are also saying that the woman just watches TV or she goes on Instagram for hours and hours. And they know that now because they're working from home. A lot more men are working from home. And then he thinks, well, shit, what's she doing? And then the difference is that men are like, well, what's she doing? We ought to have like a lot of sex because since she's not doing anything else, then we should be having sex. And that is, of course, not how the woman feels it. In fact, the more kind of useless you feel, and I've talked about this a lot, the lower your self-esteem is, the more you look up at 12 and you're like, oh my God, I've been scrolling Instagram since 10, the less likely you are to want to have sex because sex comes from a healthy place, healthy self-esteem. If you don't love yourself, it's hard to give that love sexually or in any way to anybody else. And the less you do that's productive, we're designed to be productive. Otherwise, we die, right? Evolutionarily, you cannot just sit around. Everybody used to have a role. And the oldest people used to watch babies and they used to also prepare food and all of those sorts of things. And the younger people would have roles as well. Almost, from toddler age, people were helping the community. Now we've become very divorced from our roots in that way. And people can have a life of complete automated leisure. But that isn't healthy. I have a podcast that says not working is pretty terrible for many people. And it is because you do not have this drive. The drive kind of, after like a few days even of doing nothing, it's kind of hard to get up and motivated. And if you struggle with any sort of anxiety, then let's say you have social anxiety and you skip a few days of going out in the world and engaging, it's harder to do it on the fourth day, because that avoidance perpetuates the anxiety. So that's what exposure therapy is in opposition to. The more you put yourself out there, the more that you try to confront your fears, the more consistently you do that, then the likelier your fears are to go away, right? So point being that if you do nothing, and this was about men who do nothing because I'm trying to help them understand this is at the root of why you're not getting laid, why she doesn't seem to like you. But it's really about both genders as I'm talking about it. It manifests differently, and the women frequently don't even understand how much the guy is like weirded out. Like, what the hell does she even do all day? Because, as I said, he still has sex with her. He still pursues her romantically because he has a stronger drive for those things. Not because he's somehow a better person or less judgmental or anything, but because he wants to have sex. So she's around and he has a higher sex drive. And he loves her, And your wife can love you if you just kind of sit around, but she thinks about you as a lazy child that she loves. She does not admire you like a productive, proactive man. And you may say, but she always finds stuff to do in the home and she's anxious. So then she always finds stuff to do and there isn't even that much stuff to do. So why can't I sit around? Well, sure. Sometimes, when she's anxious and she's like scrubbing the grout with a toothbrush and, nothing has to be done, or she's reorganizing something for the millionth time. But much more often, like picture the home life of like a child where the parents are just like laying around scrolling versus one where the parents find shit to do. Let's bake cookies. Let's organize the cabinet. Let's do some kind of home project. Hey, maybe let's hang one of these things on the wall. Those children in productive households where things are always getting done, A, they learn a lot of, quote, adulting skills, and B, you're swept up in the confident momentum of a home where shit is getting done. And when you're depressed, by the way, you sit around and then post hoc, you come up with a reason for it. So there's a lot of depressed guys married to anxious women. And he says that she's the problem because she's always up and scurrying around and doing all this shit. Well, from her perspective, he's depressed and he's just sitting around. So she has twice the shit to do because he does not. So there's always a different way to look at it. This is why it's so useful to get into couples counseling, right? Because then the couples counselor is an objective person that could be like, wait, hold on. Like, you do what? And she does what? And what's going on? And then they could say, oh, this sounds like anxiety, or this sounds like depression, or, it's just not usual for somebody to sit and scroll for X amount of hours, or, whatever the case may be. And by the way, your children are emulating you, and there's nobody who wants their kid to sit and scroll for 4 hours, So the point being is that if your wife is always, you think, up and doing busy work, why not try to see if it really is busy work? Why not try to get up when she's up and let the children see you being productive and being a member of the household, take over half of what she's doing, engage on a different task in parallel. Whenever she's up, I have a podcast that says, get up when your wife gets up. And people have said it's very good practical advice that transforms their relationship. If she is up, you should be up. Try it, And I know that you work all day and you're tired, but the reality is that people are not designed just to be active for like 10 hours if they're awake for like 18 hours. So they're still supposed to do other things in the home for their children, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, there's relaxation, but you want to be one of the people in the world where people are like, oh, you should relax. You work so hard, take a break. Not one where people are like, why are you still sitting there? Right? I mean, let the world around you kind of titrate whether or not you are in which bucket you're in. Because eventually, if you really are a really hard worker, somebody's going to mention it and somebody's going to notice it in your home, right? You may just think that you're a very hard worker, but then in your home, you are coming off as somebody kind of lazy. And that is not a good role model for the kids. And that's not going to be attractive to your wife. That's like the least attractive thing possible, as I'm telling you now. All right. I hope that this was a wake-up call for some of you, really, pep talk. And I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great day, guys.